Nice to see you. My name's Alex, if you don't know who I am.
Hi, I'm Rodney. Great to see you.
And thanks for tuning in to this Leadership Lean In episode. And this Monday evenings, we do these just, I guess, to communicate what's going on with Redeemer now.
Absolutely.
And keep you in the loop and just chat about how we're doing with things and everything else that's happening. So wasn't it good to start Redeemer yesterday?
Yeah, we had a fantastic time, didn't we? I really enjoyed that. It was
Yeah.
Brilliant start.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the wall of eggs that got demolished at the beginning. We had some fun filming.
Oh, I tell you what, that was a risky moment, you know. First time round, when I pushed that wall through, a flying egg came and cut my lip. Well, it was the box, actually. So
we had to stop.
Oh.
I thought it was going really, really well. And then Joel said, no, stop. Rodney, your lip's cut.
I know, there was blood.
There you go, the first blood of Redeemer.
Blood of Redeemer.
Which I did want that to happen at some point because I think it's important that you bleed in these kind of church plant scenarios.
Yeah.
So, but it was good.
It was great. And I just want to say, for the record, I did not eat all those eggs.
Really?
Not quite.
Not quite.
We did eat some, but I wasn't the only one. So others were eating too.
Yeah.
But it was great.
It was good,
really
yeah.
good.
It was
Really
nice to have
enjoyed
some fun
Absolutely,
in those kind of things.
absolutely, yeah.
But we're just so excited that we've started, and we know we brought the whole thing forward, and it was all a kind of a bit last minute, but we do feel like the hand of God in this situation.
Definitely.
And the whole reason, I hope you know this if you're part of Redeemer, but if you're not or you don't, well, the whole reason we want to start this new church is that we want to see people come to know Jesus in this town. And I think this is a God-given opportunity for us to really think, I guess, creatively about how we engage people that don't know Jesus and what it means to do church.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting moment as well because we've been forced to change. We wouldn't have chosen this change, but it's been forced upon us, and of course, many, every other church in many ways. But it's it's therefore making us rethink and refocus, and suddenly we're getting much more crystalline in terms of we've got to go for the unsaved.
Yeah.
We've got to reach out with the gospel. Yeah. And so this is a great moment. To start on that journey.
Yeah, really great. And I feel like we want to pioneer something in that sense. That's why we've started this series called The Pioneers, looking at the early parts of the Jesus movement when Jesus was first starting what he was doing. And we looked at yesterday when Jesus was 12 and going to the temple, what he called his father's house, on his father's business, as some translators put it. And we want to be people that are on God's business, and I think
that's right.
I think so often the church can, and we can all be guilty of it, kind of just naturally looks in on itself and kind of just gets consumed by internal programs and all sorts of things. But actually, I think in this moment, what it means to be on, I don't know what you think about this, on God's business, is actually that we're intentionally forcing ourselves to focus outward on people that don't know Jesus. And Jesus said, I came to seek and save those who are lost. And I think that's what we want to be about,
Yeah, I think it's a moment of a cruise ship becoming a warship.
Yeah,
That's
and we
kind of
recognise that language, right?
Yes,
Maybe you
we do.
recognise that if
Yes.
you've been part of Jubilee in the past. We had a whole thing about that.
Yeah, so suddenly the roles are changing, our focus is changing, the mission. And we always did have the mission, but it's now becoming very focused. It's like we've got our orders, our instructions, and it's now time to launch. And we have just launched yesterday.
Yeah.
It's incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I'm so really pleased, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you tuned in. I hope you do contribute, like Rodney said yesterday morning. This is easily a moment. It easily could be a moment that kind of feeds our consumerist tendencies,
Yes.
and we kind of need to fight against that and build something different.
Yeah. I mean, I love the interactions. I love seeing the messages, and also just knowing who is on board. Who's watching, because we don't quite know who's watching until somebody messages and says, "Hi, love you," love what you're doing, or whatever, So please do that. It's really encouraging. And any prayers that you want to do, anything, even share a little scripture, or just focus on that was great, well said, amen. Whatever you want to do, it all just helps with the interaction while we're in this strange world of being, to some extent, self-isolated.
Yeah. And I think, going back to the reason we want to start the church for people that don't know Jesus, I think there's never been an easier time to invite someone to church. Okay, it's never going to get easier than this. All you've got to do is say, go on this YouTube channel and check us out at 10. Whereas before, you've got the barrier of, okay, I've got to be somewhere at 10. I've never been to the building before. I don't know the people. All of that's cut out. And so I just encourage you to use this moment. Invite people to church. Maybe you do that just by sharing our stuff on your Instagram feeds, your Facebook feeds. Maybe you text a friend and say, why don't you check us out this Sunday? Maybe you send them, I don't know, our stuff. It's never going to be easier.
No,
right?
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Because that barrier of going into a building, suddenly they stay in their sitting room.
Yeah.
So they've, it's an easy way in, isn't it? They can just observe and see what is going on and see what do Christians do? What is that like? And they can begin to be drawn in that way. I think it is a great opportunity. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So let's take it, especially as we start Redeemer, because we want this to characterize us as a church and kind of become part of our culture, a culture of invitation. So let's start while the going's as easy as it's ever going to be, and invite people online. Amen. And so we're kind of coupling this new series with a reading plan.
Yeah, that's right, yes. So you would have had the first one today. We're going through Acts. You'd have done Acts 1. You'd have sent a great video from Alex.
Great video.
And so every day we're going to be sending out a video Monday to Friday, and then that goes with the reading plan. And it's roughly half a chapter of Acts a day, but it varies a tiny bit, I think. Yeah. And so it's all about being a pioneer. It's all about, what did the early church look like? How did they pioneer church? How did they pioneer these new communities? And Acts is very practical, and it's just very helpful. It's like a fast-going story. Slows down every so often. You get a bit of intensity on something, and then you move on again. And so it's just great for us to say, do you know what? This is like the time of Acts. We are pioneering, we're planting, we're bringing, Jesus to a culture that doesn't know him at all, that has been worshipping idols for years, basically. And we're saying, hey, there's a king on the throne, and it's Jesus. Come and meet him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just littered through the book of Acts.
Yes.
Like even in the early chapters that are based in Jerusalem, you think, oh, they've not been worshipping idols. But actually Jesus says a lot in Luke, particularly about how the kind of idolatrous nation that Israel has become. Even though they say they worship the true God, they do it in all sorts of kind of crooked, strange ways. But then later, as you go on, like the middle of the book, Paul's going to all these kind of Asian cities and European cities in Greece and other places. And it's just a place like our culture, worshipping the gods of, I don't know, for us, individualism, consumerism, for them, all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
And we need to contextualize the gospel for that.
Yeah, it's very relevant. It's got so much to say to us right now about our culture and how we begin to engage. And sometimes seeing how Paul engages by taking something of their culture and saying, there's this unknown God, I'm going to tell you who he is. And then he quotes one of their poets, in him we live and move and have our being. And so he really takes their culture and says, actually, look, this is now God coming into your culture and becoming relevant, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So. And do you think there's even like a real parallel with the way that the early church started, which was largely house churches, I guess? You kind of get the impression. Yeah. Lots of houses. They often talk about this church that meets in your house and your house. And we're kind of doing that now, though we've got our kind of big temple moments that I guess you'll read about in Acts 2 and Acts 3, which is our online moment at the moment. Actually, a lot of it was house to house. It just reminds me...
Yes, it is.
It's kind of, I think, helpful that we started Redeemer not in the Guildbourne Centre.
I think so.
Because we kind of... Otherwise, you kind of couple the start of this new church with a very specific location, which is fine, apart from that the church isn't the Guildbourne Centre. It's never going to be. It's a people.
That's right, yes. The Guildbourne is a tool, as it were. It's something that will help us. But at the moment, church is people, community, building real lives, real stories, real friendships, real issues, and obviously at the moment, real struggles, difficulties, problems with health, problems with jobs, and all the difficult things that are happening at the moment with the virus and everything. We're right in the midst of it. We're able to bring Jesus in there, and then we will, of course, at some point go into the Guildbourne, which will be a great moment as well. Why don't you tell us about the Guildbourne, Alex? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, because it's all potentially maybe going to be a little complicated because of all this stuff going on. We thought, what's going on with the lease? What's going on with the builders? Which we've got lined up, both of those things. But where we are at the moment is that we're still pressing ahead, looking to sign the lease. That's just slowed right up because everything's taking longer. At the moment, we're waiting for things from the council and other things, and they've got lots to do, believe it or not. Maybe we'll tell you a bit about what they're doing later.
Yes, yes.
And so we're still waiting on that. But as soon as what we're actually going to sign, just to get technical for us, just a few seconds, is we're going to sign an agreement for lease. So we're not going to start paying a penny of rent or service charge until we actually start the actual lease, which only happens when the building work is all done. And we can take as long to do the building work as we like. So we're legally tied in as soon as we sign that agreement to lease.
Okay,
But we don't pay anything lease in terms of the lease until the building work is done. And which means we can actually draw that out a little, and we won't be moving in until we can use the space. So we won't be paying whilst we're not using it, which I think maybe was our concern initially.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to be paying a load of rent and not using the space.
Quite awkward, yeah.
So hopefully we're going to be signing that. We're getting closer every week, but it's just a slow process. We'll tell you as soon as we've signed it, and then I guess we'll be asking for all of those of you that were part of Jubilee, that did pledges, loans, gifts. We're going to be asking for all of that in, because then at some point, as soon as building work can start, we're going to be starting it.
Yes.
So it'll be exciting, but I think I feel relaxed about it. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to think at first. I thought, oh no, our plans are kind of being thrown up in the air. But then I think,
you feel somehow God's in this. You've got to find faith in the moment, haven't you? You know, God was not fazed by the virus coming.
Yeah.
God was not, fazed in terms of our plans. Even as we made plans, he knew that this would then be happening.
Yeah.
And so we can find faith in this moment, and somehow God has a better way of doing it, and that will kind of work itself out over the course of this year, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And we had such a positive change of use thing with the council.
Oh yeah, that was great.
I think God was just really in that, and it's actually been obviously in our whole journey, the journey that those of us who are part of Jubilee, in days, weeks, months, years gone by, we've had this big journey looking for buildings, and we trust even in the lower moments that God was in.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
So we know He's in it now, and so we're just trusting Him. But far more excited, I guess, about the church that we're starting, why we're starting it, than buildings. Although we think that's key to the vision that God's given us.
Yeah. I mean, we do believe that God has many people in this town to save. There are many people who become Christians, and so to become more missional, this is the moment. This is the great moment. This is the kind of much like the reset button. This is where we said, okay, we'll start with a new plant, and actually we can now focus on the town in a new missional way. Yeah. And that involves lots of things. It means telling people about Jesus. It means obviously making friends with your neighbours. It means all the things that in some ways we've said before, but with a kind of a real sharpness to the focus. It also means serving the town, doesn't it? And just tell us what's happening in that, because right now we're able to serve the town in a wider way, aren't we?
This is really exciting. So if you tuned in yesterday morning, you'll have hopefully picked up that we were approached by the council, Worthing Borough Council, to partner with them. So we were running a food bank program. We'd really quickly re-engineered what food bank meant, to a delivery service, to not just feeding people who can't afford it, although that was our priority, like what food bank is supposed to be, but also people that weren't able to get out of their homes. We're taking on a big potential task in doing that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But people, you and others responded so well. We've had so many volunteers. We still need more, so you can check out our website, worthingfoodbank.co.uk, to sign up to volunteer. We need more food. We're going to need more money. But such a great response, so thank you if you responded in that way. But the council got in touch with us and said they are having just endless requests to help people, to feed people, and so they asked if we would partner with them. And so we've joined forces with the council, so we've moved into council premises, and Val John, who's on our staff team, has just done an outstanding job with Julie Denyer, who's our food bank manager, and others, in just really gearing us up for that. And it's just been a fantastic start, and I think this is why we want to start this new church. I don't want us to get confused and think it's all about the name Redeemer. We're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this because we want to serve our town, first of all by bringing them the good news of Jesus, but actually we want to serve our town in every way that we can, and this is just a unique moment where there's a need and we can really meet it well. And so I'm just thrilled with how we're partnering with
Brilliant.
the council, and really grateful for them for asking us. And
Yeah, that's really fantastic, isn't it? Amazing.
yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
it's kind of the things that one of those things you always want, isn't it? You kind of want to be in a position where you get the call from the council to say we'd love to partner with you. Usually it's like the other way around, like, can we do stuff? Can we,
I'll tell you what, it's really nice, isn't it, as a brand new church, to get off on a really good footing with the council. Because churches in the past and our experiences of past churches haven't always been like that. Yeah. But to be right at the front foot with the council is such a good thing. Yeah. Also, just with the town, I mean, it was lovely, even the comments yesterday
really nice.
with different leaders, church leaders in the town wishing us well. And we've also had lots of, well-wishing from regions beyond, which you'd kind of expect in many ways. But it's lovely for the town, Andy, Jonathan from Maybridge, and Rich from Tab, and all that, to kind of like just wish us well and to get off to a good start. So I think, it's been a great positive start. Very early days, of course. Just one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
24 hours.
Yeah, but it's been a really positive 24 hours.
Very good 24 hours.
Yeah. Maybe next week we'll say it's been a bad week. It's been a bad week, the beginnings of Redeemer.
Yes, exactly.
But so far. And can I just give you some more good news, which I completely forgot earlier.
Go on.
Sorry.
Yes.
Because we've had a great 24 hours. Let me just add to the positivity of those 24 hours. Is that to do with the Guildbourne Centre? I got a message from Martin Garrett, who used to be an elder of Jubilee, who now leads Trinity Church in Littlehampton. And they have decided to take up an offering for us. In fact, they've taken up that offering, I think, for our Guildbourne Centre venture, which is really kind of them and really good of them. But then they also told me that they were going to add some money to it, and they've decided to give us £20,000.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
That's incredible.
What a lot of money for them to be able to give. That's really
for
fantastic.
a new church. I mean, they're not as new as us now, but they're only a year or a year and a half old now, and much smaller than we are, and just a phenomenal generosity. So if any of you are watching from Trinity, we're so grateful.
Thank you so much. That was so kind of you.
Unbelievably generous. And thanks Martin and the leadership team.
Absolutely.
So if you're watching and you know people from Trinity, just send them a message. Send them a message now and say thank you so much for standing with us. And it just means so much. Yes. Good 20. Well, we found out that a few days ago now, but good 24 hours.
Good 24 hours. Yeah. And that's what churches do. They stand with one another, don't they? And I think that's so important. We stand with Trinity, Trinity stand with us.
And right now, so we're part of this global family called Regions Beyond. Yes. You may or may not have heard of that, depending on how long you've been hanging around the build up to this plant. But we're part of this church family called Regions Beyond, led overall by a guy called Steve Oliver, who we love to bits. He's a great guy, but also led by, it's kind of in several kind of subgroups to kind of keep that simple. And we're really linking strongly with a guy called Fuzi, who's a dear friend of ours who's based in Dubai. Why don't you just tell us, Rod, a bit about what's going on in our Regions Beyond family? And
Sure, yeah. I obviously have contacts in different places around the world, but they're contacts that many of you have as well. So let's start with one that we'll know well, Colin and Pam in South Africa. I was just messaging Colin the other day, and it's really tough for them. They're in a 35-day lockdown, and he said that it's really hard. That particularly in the black community, they kind of like they have an attitude of, well, do you know what? If I die, I die. I don't want to social. I don't want to self-isolate. Get the terminology right. And so to enforce it in townships is really, really hard. And so there's kind of fear that actually the virus could spread quite quickly if it takes root out there. The church that Colin's part of, Freedom Church, they were just reaching out into the community, reaching out into the townships, and then suddenly this lockdown comes in, and they've had a real problem because they can't connect online with people. People don't have internet. They don't have data on their phones. So suddenly their outreach has had to stop, pardon me, and it's mainly phone calls. But they are feeding, I think it's about 30 families, somewhere on my notes. They're feeding 30 or 40 families, and they're using the money that was going to go into the outreach now just purely for food production. Okay. On top of that, as a wider kind of region in Southern Africa, they've identified, I think, 59 leaders of different churches, often small rural churches, who are really struggling. Because what they're used to, and we're seeing this a lot around the world, that all their income is by giving in the offering pot on a Sunday morning. And so because they're not meeting on a Sunday, suddenly there's no giving in these churches at all. And so the pastors are struggling because that's where their income comes from. So they're managing to give them, I think, 300 rand each, which is about £15. So that kind of brings it home, doesn't it? So so there's a lot of struggles there. And obviously even for Colin and Pam and the investments they've got, there's struggles in South Africa. So do remember to pray for South Africa. You know, let's remember to hold them in our hearts and in our minds, in our thinking. And if you know Colin and Pam, why don't you just message them, say you're praying for them, that you love them, that you
really
care for them. They would really, really love that. And also India, some of you have been to India with me, and again, they're on this long lockdown, which is incredible. 1.3 billion people locked down. I mean, how on earth do they do that? That's just incredible, isn't it? And the virus, again, hasn't really spread as fast in India as it has in Europe, which is a good thing, obviously. But what it's meant is, with this lockdown, lots of people have lost jobs, particularly what they call daily wage earners. They're people that just go each day and are paid on a daily basis. So 40 to 45 million people have lost their jobs in India. It's just a huge number.
It's the whole best part of the population of the UK.
Best part of the UK population, yeah, exactly. And many of those, they're then on the streets, they're not looked after, so they then have to find their way back to their family villages to be looked after. Some of them have walked over 100 miles, some of them have died on that walk. So it's just been quite desperate. The church in Mumbai, One Nation, that we link with, led by a guy called Errol, they're trying very hard just to keep feeding the poor. I think the biggest fear is that the poor will starve, and that there's a real worry about lack of food in India and in many parts of the world as well. So again, if you want to pray for India, pray that the poor will get enough food. Can you pray for them? Pray that the church can really rise and use their limited resources wisely. And you know, like, it reminds me of Jesus feeding the 5,000. They just had, a few loaves and a couple of fish, but actually they offered it to Jesus and it fed a multitude. And it's kind of like, if you ever need a miracle of that kind now is the moment. So can you pray that God will almost miraculously provide for the people in India? So it's quite desperate. Do pray for them. Similar things in Mexico. I speak to John Evans, and again, the churches in Mexico, they don't give online, they give on a Sunday morning. The churches can't meet, and so their funds are running short. It's something that, strangely enough, just seems to be reoccurring right around the world. We kind of take it for granted. Most of us give by standing order, and that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. We so appreciate that. It's wonderful.
We're going to have our first money in as Redeemer, like people giving and stuff, which really appreciate you being so generous. We do take it for granted, though, don't we?
I know, and so thank you so much. We, every penny, is valuable right now in the kingdom of God. But around the world, we find that online giving isn't such a big thing. It's only in the Western nations. So even in Dubai, where you would think maybe you might put Dubai on a par with the UK, but actually Dubai is UAE is very different to the UK. And so it's based on a lot of people that come in and work. So there obviously are locals, Emiratis, but almost all the people in the churches that we have a relationship with, they're not Emiratis. They're people from various nations that have come to Dubai to work. Now in Dubai, there's a very strict lockdown right now. And the government has said that companies can slash wages and lay off people. I think they need rules and laws for that, to go ahead to do it. So people have had their salaries cut by 50%. Other people have just lost their jobs. So people are having to leave Dubai and go back to their nations, in some instances. So Dubai's a sort of place where when it's going well, you can make some money. When it's going not so well, there is not the safety net at all. And people really, really struggle. And so City Hill, similarly to what we've explained with others, they all their giving was done on a Friday morning when they met, and they didn't have a bank account. So now when people aren't meeting, actually their income has dropped right out. and so their money has plummeted overnight because they were just living month by month, even with the offerings. And so it's quite a challenge for them, really. And obviously we partner with Fusi, and obviously Joel Mason's there as well, who many of you will know from Worthing, and Hannah. So it's desperate times.
So we'd really love to stand with some of our brothers and sisters, like in our Regions Beyond family at the moment. And we've got these different situations going on. We obviously can't, we're not the answer to, any problems really, not let alone all of these problems. But I think it's just really important in moments like this that we play our part. And there's a biblical principle that Paul, when he's writing in 2 Corinthians, uses, and he's taken it from Exodus when they were gathering manna in the desert, and it says that whoever gathered a lot had none left over, and whoever gathered a little always had enough. And there are churches around the world that are gathering very, very little and struggling to feed themselves in some cases, let alone try and feed their communities. And so we are in an even though there'll be some of you that are really struggling, there might be some of you that have lost your self-employment income, that have maybe lost jobs. I definitely know some of you have been furloughed. But we are in such a fortunate position in this nation, having a government that will step in and such a safety net like we've got. None of these places have that. And so we want to play our part. And so we're actually going to open a fund. We're going to call it the Relief Fund. Yes. And we'd just love you to consider giving to that. Okay, so this is over and above what we're going to start regularly giving as part of Redeemer. This is not the same as that. This is over and above that. So if you go on our website, if you go to the giving section of redeemer.co.uk, you'll be able to select. There'll be the Relief Fund after this. So from tomorrow, that'll be available. And we'd just love you to consider giving to that. And we're going to use that money both for some of those situations, particularly for Fusi and City Hill. Yeah, initially, because largely, not because they're the greatest need. I mean, you heard with so many needs. But I think just right at the early stages of Redeemer, it's really important that we link with apostolic leadership. Yes. And Fusi is overseeing us in that role. We have a really close relationship with him. And we're going to be making big asks on Fusi, actually, with some of his time. But I think it's important that an apostolic partnership is a two-way street. That's a biblical principle. So we're going to make asks of Fusi and say, Fusi, we need you. We need your input. We need you to shape us. Yeah. But actually, even though we're a one-day-old church, we've actually started in quite a robust, established way, and I think we've got a responsibility to help release him, to serve him. They might not have enough money as a church to pay him and Joel. They just have no idea what they're going to be doing. They're, as a church as well, he was telling me yesterday, was supporting several other churches in much poorer nations. And so we're going to send a good chunk of the money that goes from that relief fund to Fusi and City Hill. And maybe even use it for what's going on locally. Right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll keep it open for a little while, for as long as we feel we need to. And so it will start off initially, we'll give to Fusi, but then there'll be other things, both locally and maybe some other international things. We'll let you know. We'll keep you up to date with that. And of course, you can gift aid as well. So there's a form that you can fill out to gift aid your money if you're a UK taxpayer. And if you've never done that, please do that, because of course it's money then that we can get tax back, which means your money goes further basically. So it's wise to do that if you can. And you can pay by debit card or credit card online. So you can do all that on our website, redeemer.co.uk/give. It's very self-explanatory. Fill out the gift aid form, and I'd just really love you to consider giving to that, especially, maybe only, but especially if you consider yourself saying, I'm planting Redeemer. This is what it's going to mean for us. It's going to mean seeing people come to know Jesus in our town, but God's given us already a global vision to partner with, stand with, strengthen churches, plant churches, and this is an opportunity for us to start that. Absolutely. So why don't we just wrap up with saying what's coming up? Why don't you kick us off? Okay. So we've got Digging Deeper coming up on Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Leviticus part 3, and we're digging into the sacrifices. Leviticus 1-7, we're looking at the first 3 sacrifices. Can't wait, tune in for that. We've obviously talked about our pioneering reading plan, which has already started, so that will carry on rolling out. So do get hold of that, and let that stir you and stir your heart and make you feel like, yes, I'm pioneering like they did in Acts.
Obviously, you've got hopefully your Redeemer planting groups this week.
Yeah.
Hope they're going well.
Yeah.
Mine is going fantastically.
Yeah, mine's been great. Actually, just encourage you again. We said about this last week.
Yeah.
But we, the group that I'm a part of, we started this church before church idea where we recognise in churches in a meeting, it's the people. And so we met together 9:30 for coffee, 9:30 till 10. And then it kind of meant that we were all gathered together, even though we stopped the Zoom call before the meeting. We're just there together. We're enjoying each other's company. It's just a really nice little way. I'd really encourage you to do that as your group.
Great idea. And then obviously on Sunday, 10 a.m. we're online again.
Yeah, Redeemer Part 2.
Yeah. And then there's one other thing, isn't there? 24th of April.
Yes, 24th of April. What's happening on the 24th of April?
On the 24th of April, we are going to have a Zoom prayer meeting.
Yes, a Zoom prayer meeting. And we really are looking forward to that, because as you'll start reading through the book of Acts, you will see how foundational prayer was to the life of the early church, and we don't want to miss out on that. And we could easily, because of the current not being able to be together. So we're going to pray in Redeemer groups. That's what it's so important that you're part of those, so we get that church planting mentality bubbling. But Zoom prayer meetings, so that's a week
whole
Friday.
Church prayer meeting,
whole
week
church.
Friday, 7:30 till 8, so just half an hour. We will tell you more about that next week.
Yeah.
And how we're going to do that, because obviously with so many people, we've just got to have some kind of rules in place as to how that works. Otherwise, it becomes a free-for-all, and you probably wouldn't hear anything.
Oh my goodness! It could be a cacophony of disaster.
Yeah.
If we...
So we're gonna figure this one out, but it's so important to pray that we've got to do that. And again, it's something we, as a church, as Redeemer, we want to be a praying church.
Yeah.
If we're going to achieve all the things we want to achieve, then we've got to be praying.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts here.
So the plan is that's going to be half an hour of praying.
Yes.
So we're not going to have a worship time or anything like that. But what we are thinking of doing, because we also want to be a church that loves to worship, that loves to engage with God, draw close to God, particularly in worship. So the plans are always in pencil in this world, but the plan is that maybe on alternate Fridays or every other Friday or something, we'll have one prayer Zoom time and then one maybe live worship time. Not sure how it's going to work. Stay tuned and we'll give you some info.
Great. That's it, I think.
Great. This has been fun. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope it's been helpful, and we'll see you at the things we've said in the week, and then we'll see you next week for the next Leadership Lean In. Have a great week.
Great. Okay.
See you guys. Bye.